Welcome to Cinema Sit Down. Today we watch Pinocchio by Guillermo del Toro, released in 2022. I'm here with...
I'm Sam.
And...
I'm Leilani.
And we'll be back to talk about this movie in just a few short moments. And we're back. So just to start out, a little bit of history about the movie. So Guillermo del Toro loves Pinocchio, and he's actually been wanting to do this movie for a very long time. Since like 2008, he's been trying to work on this movie, and just nobody wanted to produce it because it was very expensive. Everything stop motion.
I mean, yeah, it doesn't look cheap.
Yeah, no, it doesn't look cheap. If you've seen the movie, it's super high budget. Fantastical, amazing, and so Netflix picked this up 2022. Well, they probably picked it up earlier than that, but it came out 2022, so pretty recent, since 2008. So he's been really waiting for this kind of passion project.
Good for him, honestly, for holding out for that long.
Right.
That's really impressive.
Yeah, so just some first thoughts, and I'm sure some good things about the movie.
I loved it. It's like, just like, what is it, cinematically, it's beautiful. I thought like it's a very beautiful like movie with all the like the stop motion. It's super impressive. It just, what happened? I guess I just didn't know the plot of the original Pinocchio story. Maybe that's on me, but I didn't expect him to get run over by a car and actually die. I didn't think it was gonna happen. And then he got shot, and then he got caught, he was put on fire, and then he drowned. Spoilers, I guess, but what is going on? So a lot happened, and it really threw me for a loop every single time it happened. And then they got eaten by this big thing, this
monster
fish thing. It got swallowed. Oh my God. It just felt like there was never a moment to breathe at any point in time in that entire movie. It was a great movie, though. I loved it.
Dude, I feel like my heart was racing during that whole thing.
Oh my God, I know.
Like, I've said this once, but all I know of Pinocchio is what I've seen in Shrek, okay? So all of this kind of took me by surprise, but same thing with the animations, the stop motion. I really enjoy pieces like this because it's not just like the cinematography that they have of it, the writing and all of that. It's also like full on the art of it. But that story, I didn't expect it. I don't remember ever seeing Pinocchio be so, heart-wrenching and destructive and war, but maybe I just missed something when I was a child. But I really like this movie.
Yeah, so, I mean, what you guys are kind of hinting at, if you've seen the movie, it's definitely a retelling with kind of a darker spin to it. I was kind of wondering whether you guys think that worked for this movie, whether you like people retelling these stories in a different light.
Is it not the adaptation of the original Pinocchio story?
It is, yeah.
Oh, what are the brothers' names? The people that write the original Disney stories that they adapted. Those guys.
Yeah.
We'll probably get in trouble with somebody in the control room for that. But but I'm pretty sure it was an original, so he adapted the first story instead of the retelling that Disney and all of them did that made it like more suitable and digestible for kids. Because I was expecting more of a Disney-friendly, like kid-friendly version. There was like war and stuff. That was insane. Okay, but I think it was a nice difference. Like if you can be like, oh, I watched the Pinocchio movie. I was like, yeah, but not the original. You need to watch the other one, the one that he dies like 5 times in, because that's insane. There's a very separate like difference between the two, which I think sets it apart, which I think can be a good thing. I liked it. I thought it was really cool.
And I think a lot of like recent, like you said, it kind of seems like it might in the beginning, like, oh, maybe this is just a Disney movie. And I think it does a really good job of actually making a unique retelling of a story. Because a lot of the recent Disney movies, they're like just live action movies that are just, they don't have any of the magic of the originals.
Yeah.
And this one definitely takes that kind of thing that's been happening recently in cinema and really turns it around, and he makes such a unique and wonderful retelling, in my opinion. And I think the dark kind of tone of it, I mean, it's still hopeful, but it's a little bit darker. I mean, you see him dying multiple times, and it's during the kind of in between World War I, World War II, Italy, Mussolini, all that. So it's definitely darker, but it's still very childlike. It's funny. It's hopeful. And did you kind of agree with that? Do you think it's a good retelling?
I think so. I mean, obviously, I don't know what the original was like, but I do kind of think that like it is a mix of like the childlike look with the animation, but then like the entire story that it has a lot of like deep topics, especially with like the war and everything, and kind of the sense of like forgiveness with like the guardian angel who's over, what's his name? Starts with a G. Gelato.
Yeah, I couldn't remember any of the names besides Pinocchio. I'm gonna be real.
But I mean, even with like all of his deaths and whatnot, because like those things wouldn't normally happen, but it's kind of like telling and like showing like the different themes of it, even though like obviously these things aren't real. Pinocchio is a wooden doll who gets a life in order to help somebody else, kind of thing. Probably bad word, it gets a get. But no, I think it was still really good. I mean, I don't know the original, but it was a really good story, and it has a lot of good themes.
Yeah, and even with this kind of like some of the darker things, it's just a beautiful movie, and it has a lot of great imagery. And we can kind of talk about different parts of the imagery. I just wanted to bring up kind of the religious imagery, because the beginning is a lot about the church, and eventually it gets destroyed. And Pinocchio literally looks up to Jesus, and he's having kind of this conversation, and it's all about kind of rebirth and stuff like that.
Right.
Later on, Pinocchio's on a cross.
Yeah, no, that threw me further. When I saw that, I was like, this is not happening.
That took me back in my seat. I was like, oh my gosh.
So was there any kind of imagery like that you guys were interested in? Not specifically religious, but just anything that you thought was particularly beautiful or?
Thought, like after Carlo died, him, like us finding out after Pinocchio was, well, born, I guess, created, that we find out that after it's been 3 years, and the church is bothering him to fix the crucifix that he made, and it's kind of showing that like he definitely lost his sense of like religion and his feeling of like connection to just like hope as a whole. And I think this entire process, like him meeting Pinocchio and him getting to know him, was kind of like a good step in the right direction, because as soon as he was like, I have to go to church, which I don't know if he went to church in that time frame of his son dying and when the movie starts, but I'm gonna assume that he didn't, because
he kind of abandoned like what he was working on.
He did, and if he did go, then he would like see that. He would see the cross and he'd be like, I should probably fix that. So I think it was kind of, I don't know, it just kind of related to the concept of like hope and wanting to become more like move on with life, I guess. I don't know. I thought it was interesting. And then him being on the cross when he was being burned, that was insane. That was insane.
Yeah, and a lot of the darker moments, sometimes they move past it pretty quick. And that one I felt like the cross one in particular, they kind of like, this is a really like graphic, dark scene, and it's kind of
being burned alive, and they're like,
right.
I want, let me go.
Yeah.
And that was it. And I was like,
yeah. And
he's burning.
Yeah.
This movie was something else.
And that's kind of something with the tone that I was a little bit like, okay, sometimes you switch around too much from it being funny versus it being kind of dark. And, I had a few issues with that. But back to kind of the imagery, was there any particular scenes that you really enjoyed, or just something you kind of picked on? Colors?
I don't know if there was any specific scenes. I did kind of like how a lot of it like tied back around to where they originally were. Like even like the place where Carlo was kind of buried. Like Pinocchio went back to there even after, I was gonna say gelato again, after he kind of passed. But even now that I started thinking about the whole him burning on the cross thing, because I found that also to be interesting, because like whenever he first went to the church, he's like, I want to go to church, you're so happy about it, and everyone's like, a demon, like get him out of here, all these things. And so it kind of brought it around to that as well, which was back to what they were originally probably going to do. They were like, get rid of him,
burn at the stake.
And man, that kind of pulled at me. I was like, ooh.
Yeah.
But I don't know if there's any other like specifics, because I'm like still taking all of it in.
Right.
It
Yeah,
feels
there's
like I'm
a
still
lot.
processing
Yeah.
this movie.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm not out of time to process everything that I just witnessed.
Right, and
I did.
and I watched it when it first came out, and I watched some of it when I came back, and it was still a lot to kind of take on, because obviously we're not really used to stop motion in the modern day. It's not really a common art form.
Which
so
is a shame, because it's a
yes,
beautiful art form.
It's
Yeah.
really
it's just
beautiful.
so hard to do.
Yeah.
And it just costs so much. And I looked a little bit into the background of the movie. They had like 60 different teams working on
Oh my
each, like
God.
all the stop motion. They had like 3,000 different faces for Pinocchio, all this crazy
Yeah.
stuff, which makes sense to why it took so long for it to be finally picked up by Netflix. But what are you guys' thoughts? I know there's a few kind of like unique movies coming out with like Spider-Man, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and now kind of this with very unique kind of art styles. Are you guys kind of into those weirder kind of stuff? Do you think it's good for cinema?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think we need a refresher on like just cool stuff. When the Spider-Man movies came out, I was obsessed with them because they were so cool. So I think something that kind of pushes it a little bit, or at least not even pushes it, like just reminds you of like when Coraline was stop motion and everyone loved it. Like going back to Or the Nightmare Before Christmas, all those things, those are movie classics that everyone loves. So I think kind of remembering that with this type of movie is really important, and I'm glad that people are starting to push it a little bit more in terms of like cinema and all that. It's really cool.
Do you have any different opinions on that?
Well, I've always loved a lot of like animations and kind of movies like that, because a lot of the other ones, which are all like, you know, realistic and with people, they kind of seem like rinse and repeat. But with especially the new ones that are coming out, like you mentioned Spider-Man, the art style of that is definitely different, and I think that was really cool because they mixed a whole bunch of different art styles, especially in, what was it, Across the Spider-Verse?
Yeah.
This one I think was really cool because there's a lot of stop motion animations, and not a lot, okay, but it's just how intricate it has to be. And you mentioned like the 60 plus heads for the facials and things like that, and I was meaning to look at like the behind the scenes of this one because I have for another one, and it's really crazy, and I just have like a love for these kinds.
Yeah, and so kind of maybe coming to the ending, which you've kind of been going around a little bit. What did you guys think of the ending? Do you think it's a happy, a bittersweet,
I don't
or a
know.
sad kind of ending? Because I know it kind of leaves it up in the air a little bit with
I
what
don't know.
happens to Pinocchio.
I don't know. I don't know if I love it, honestly. I think
kinda-
that I don't know.
I don't know, I kind of wish that he didn't
Kinda
get
wish
that
he stayed.
happy
I
ending.
kind of wish he stayed dead. Is that bad?
Yeah. I don't
That
know.
sounds like horrible,
Yeah.
but I like he willingly sacrificed his life to save his dad, more or less, and they undid that.
Yeah.
And like all of the process that he took to come to that decision, like his character development, I kind of feel like they were like, well, we can't have him lose two sons in one movie, so come back. I don't know. I mean, it was nice to have him like have that happiness, but then Pinocchio was stuck losing everyone he loved. And I know that the death goddess or whoever that was said that you will not age or like, and your family, you'll lose your loved ones, and he knew that. But I think he chose to die because then if he sacrificed himself to save his dad, then maybe at some point his dad would come and join him. I don't know. Maybe that was my guess on what he maybe was thinking, but I don't know. It felt like we undid a lot of hard work for his character development, for Pinocchio specifically. But I don't know. Maybe that's just me. I don't know.
Yeah, no, the first time I watched it, I think I had a similar opinion as you, where I kind of felt like the ending was a bit too happy, kind of for what the rest of the movie was like. Like,
happy.
yeah, just like everything works out. On a second watching, I felt like it kind of concluded Pinocchio's kind of arc and his growth, as he now has to kind of accept death for once in his life. You know, this entire movie he's been rebirth and rebirth and rebirth, and he finally sacrifices himself thinking he's gonna die, and he gets brought back for that sacrifice. But then he still gets to see the death of, you know, his kind of father figure, the little bug guy, I forget his name for some reason, Jiminy Cricket.
Sebastian.
Yeah. So, and he sees them die, and he kind of, for once, gets to process all these things, and it's kind of hinted that he too will eventually die. So I think it showed a good kind of maturity
Yeah.
in Pinocchio.
I think so. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, which I only really got in the second viewing where I was like, okay, yeah, this kind of makes more sense. But on the first viewing, I kind of felt the same as you. How did you feel?
Kind of in between of both of them actually, because part of me does kind of wish that he didn't, get reborn again, because it felt kind of like how the other movies, like you always have that last saving grace, even though I feel like if he didn't come back, it also would have been just as impactful.
Right.
But because he did come back, it got to show like the whole cycle, and like now he understands what like his father did. Also because of that, you also got to see like the end of the father, so it wasn't just like he's saved and that's it kind of thing.
I am kind of glad that they did that. I was scared that they were gonna just have it be
Like a happy
happy,
ending.
and then they don't tell us what happens after that when we all know that this man's gonna die soon. So I'm, so that's what
Yeah, I am also glad that they didn't like time lapse it until Pinocchio's death and be like, oh no, now everything's gone. So I do like the way that it ended actually.
I kind of thought, I don't know why, but I kind of thought that they were gonna like show like a tree and be like, that's Pinocchio. At the end, I don't know why I thought that, but
it just ends with the pine tree again.
That's what I thought it was gonna happen, but it kind of did, where like the pine cone fell. But
Yeah, the pine cone
I
comes
don't
back
know why I thought it was
kinda,
gonna be
but
like, that's Pinocchio. Pinocchio turned back into a pine again.
Yeah, it's like
I don't know
how
how
like
that
whenever
worked.
he lied so much that like even the leaves grew and then like the pine cones came through. It was the first time whenever he like right before he got hit. I was like, oh, what if he just had a pine cone, he buried it, and then all of a sudden there's like another Pinocchio tree.
Right, and that kind of comes back to like, it's kind of like a sad ending too, because like Pinocchio is kind of left on his own at the end, and like I was kind of thinking like maybe he'll plant a pine cone, there'll be more Pinocchios, but no, he's just kind of,
He just is alone.
he's just alone
Yeah.
with everyone dead, but that's kind of like, he has to take that next step to maturity.
Right.
What happened to the monkey?
The monkey?
The monkey died, they
I don't-
buried
I
him.
guess he's in the
Next to,
jungle. I don't know.
Oh,
The monkey died. There were 3
Did he die
gravestones
too?
when he
Oh.
left, when he walked away from the hill. Pinocchio walked away.
Oh, I just
'Cause
remember the father, and then he had the cricket on the box.
And then there was a 3rd gravestone that was next to the father. So
Rest in peace.
rest in
monkey.
peace to that
Yeah.
monkey.
Well, maybe we could go around, say a favorite scene, and then maybe give after
Oh.
that like your kind of score that you're feeling.
Oh my god, favorite scene?
I
Yeah.
think I got mine.
Do you have yours? We'll start with you then, so you can think
Yeah,
about
I need
it.
a minute. Hold on.
Yeah.
Get back to
Mine
you.
was just because I thought it was kind of funny, but it was after, I think it was after his first death, because the doctor's sitting there like checking his vitals. He's like, no. And I'm like, what are you checking? He's made of wood.
so
but like
funny.
I found it to be so funny, and then all of a sudden he comes back to life, and it's like, oh, he's back. But I just think that having the doctor there for literally like 20 seconds.
He was like, what do you want us to
Yeah.
do?
And-
Overall rating? Yeah, I normally like to rate them pretty harshly. Not really. I don't know. I'd probably say like a 9 or 9.5. I really enjoyed this one.
Nice.
So.
Yeah. I think for me, my favorite scene is probably going to be the one with what's his name, Candlewick, the little boy that Pinocchio kind of befriends. I thought all the scenes with him were really interesting, and kind of seeing how, kind of the movie's all about childhood, and it takes this child who's kind of been groomed into maybe being a really terrible person. His dad's this Italian, evil guy general, and he kind of breaks that cycle, and he steps up and takes control of, and he's like, no, Dad, I'm not going to be like you. I'm going to be my own person, be a good person, So I really like that. Honestly, I have to give this a 9 out, maybe 9.5 out of 10 as well. I thought it was nearly perfect, just a few weird tonal things that didn't really match up, but really good movie.
The only thing that's running through my head right now, the only thing I can think about is him getting burnt on the cross. It's not a favorite, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's like a great scene, but it's like a great scene in like a movie type of thing. Like, I don't know, because you mentioned the whole like religious undertones, and if you go from like him like constantly sacrificing himself and putting himself out there for people, it's very like, and then he gets put on this crucifix and then he dies for something that he can't really do anything about. He just, I don't know. I thought it was such like an interesting like way of how his life turned out that I don't know. It was so impactful to me. I don't know why. I don't want to say it's 10 out of 10, but I think it might be 10 out of 10 for me. It's like the animation was incredible, the story was was really nice, kept me actually engaged, which is really hard for movies to do. And I think it was really cool. I loved it. Like, you don't have any like faults besides like maybe the ending, and even then, that's a big maybe. So, I don't know. I'm gonna go with 10 out of 10. I'll say it. Sure.
Yo, okay.
Yeah. So, have you seen Pinocchio? Leave a
You should
comment
watch
if you
it.
have. Watch
Yeah.
it
Oh my
if you
God.
haven't. Clearly, it's an amazing movie. And I really enjoyed our discussion here
Yeah.
on Cinema Sitdown. Of course, we'll be back every week with a
Every
new movie.
week.
I believe Leilani's picking the next one, so
You
stay
should watch
tuned for
it.
that.
Yay.
And just have a great day. Go watch Pinocchio. Bye.
Bye.
See ya.
Peace and love.
Peace and love.